Okay, so today we're going to work in Illustrator. So I'm going to my Illustrator icon and I'm going to file new. Whenever I work in Illustrator, I am going to change my title to the titles that we're using in class. This is going to be our actions project. This is step 1. My first name is Mr. My last name begins with a C. And my grade, we're going to pretend, is 9. You also want to change this to inches first if it's on anything other than inches, and then you want to make sure that this says 8.5 and 11. You don't need resolution in this because this is a vector-based program, and you don't need to know what that means for now. So this is your setup. You could have made the page go the other way too. In fact, I prefer it that way, but I'm going to show you how to do this project quickly using mainly the pen tool right here. So I'm going to use the pen tool. There are a couple other tools that we're going to use in this assignment. You may remember the pen tool if you had me last year because we used the pen tool to make shapes, and I told you that if we make a shape and we don't seal it up, you'll note that there's a little circle showing up there now. That's sealing the shape. So if you don't seal it up, like if I make a rectangle here and I miss when I'm going to seal it because I'm doing it sloppy or quick, when I go to make my next shape, over here, you can see that it continues because it wants to create shapes. It's not really made to be a line tool. So being that this project is going to be all about lines, at least this first part of it, we need to create lines using it. So click to drop our first anchor point and click and release where we want the next anchor point to fall. And we're going to make a simple zigzag line right now. Alright, so I'm clicking and this is my complete zigzag line, and now I'm done with it. So I'm going to start a wavy line over here. But I forgot, it's not going to let me continue. So I have to do a little trick, which is basically telling it that we're done with this shape. So we're going to the selection tool and we're going to click it once and then click back to the pen tool. That's going to allow you to continue to make a new line. So I dropped my first anchor point. Now I'm going to drag so that I can create a wavy line. And if you had me last year, you'll remember that I said whenever you made an arch or a curve, that you had to go to your last anchor point, hover over it, look for that upside down V that comes up, and click that too. So it removes the second handle. That'll allow your transitions to be smoother as you're going through the line. So I just made my first wavy line. I'm going to add one more line to it over here. Now there's lots of different types of lines, and like for example, a curly line, a thick line, a wiggly line, a dotted line, a spiral line, a wavy line, a curly line, a curved line, etc. So hopefully I'm going to blast some different ones up on the screen so you got to see them. So now I'm going to do something over here. So you don't have to do, you want to do a total of 6 different lines. So I'm going to call this line a bouncy line. Okay. And I'm going to click off my selection tool and click my pen tool again to create this curly line. Okay. If you're having trouble making your lines, that's the whole point of this, is to practice so that you could use the pen tool. So don't quickly ask Mr. Sear for help, but try and do the lines yourself so that, Command Z, so that you can, gain practice with the tool. Alright, so this line is my least favorite. Let's say I wanted to delete a line. I can go over to my selection tool and select the line by clicking it. In this case, I'm going to click this one and delete it. Alright, so I want to show you what the next step is. Let's pretend you had all 6 done. Or actually, I'm going to pause the video and finish those 6. So give me a second. So here I have more lines, and you'll notice that I also changed the orientation of my paper just because that was bothering me. And also I thought we'd be able to see clearer if it was nice and big. So now I have several kinds of lines, and I just want to mention that this is not, like, this wouldn't count. Like, you shouldn't have something that is like, what's the word I'm looking for? That looks like a 1-year-old did it with a pencil in his mouth. So instead, you want to make sure that your lines look like they are intentional, which is how I grade. If I think that you planned on doing something and then you accomplished it, you get a much better grade than if you just did something random and threw it together and you can tell. So that's that. I want to talk to you a little bit about the selection tool, which is the tool that allows you to delete things you want to get rid of. It also allows you to shrink your lines if something is too big. It also allows you to move things. So it's important to mention that this is basically our move tool in Illustrator. Whoops, I missed. And so like this line is way too big. I could make it smaller. and then I could set up my 6 lines in a nice, very simple layout. All right, I'm going to delete this thing because it's so ugly that I can't have it on my screen. So some of you are going to want to create dotted lines, and the thing that you have to do first is we have to make sure that all of our lines have no fills, because lines are not a shape, so they shouldn't have an interior color. They should only have their actual line. Now if we look over here at our area for our fills, we have the stroke, which is the black outline that's representing the ink that we're drawing in, and this white area, which is actually our fill. So if I were to move this spiral over one of our other lines, you'll see that it is filled with a color. So instead of having it filled, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to grab the fill, which is the one that says fill. It's not the one that says stroke. And I'm going to make sure that it is nothing. That's what that red slash means. You can also take care of your fills up here and your strokes up here if you like that area better. So now that it's see-through, I can move it back, and I want to make sure all of them are the same way. They all have no fill. So I'm going to just drag a box with my selection tool over all of them so that they're all selected, and then I'm going to tell it that my fill should be nothing for all of them. All right, so the next step, now that I'm just going to prove that that worked, the next step is that we want to start creating duplicates of all of our lines. And you can see that I'm having trouble grabbing this line right here. All right, so there it goes. All right, so but before I even do that, I want to show you dotted lines. So all right, so now that we have them all separated and there's no fills and only strokes, we're going to use the eraser tool. I'm going to show you how to make a dotted line. You don't have to make a dotted line, but if you want to, you can. So all I'm doing is randomly going through my line and erasing a little bit here and a little bit there of each area. So this is going to now be my dotted wavy line. And of course, something could be two things, like you could dot your spiral line or whatever. So I don't like the way that last part erased. It didn't look even to me. It doesn't have to be even, but I want it to be. So I just Command Z'd that. All right, there you go. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So now if we use our selection tool to try and move this line, you can see that it falls apart, because what we did is we erased parts of it and now it's a bunch of separate lines really. So what we're going to do is use the selection tool to drag over the whole thing and press Command G. Command G groups things. So now if I move this with the selection tool, or if I extend it, it'll actually extend together and move together. Wow, I'm having a lot of difficulty with my move tool for some reason. My selection / move tool. All right, so now that you've seen that, I want to show you how to duplicate. So we're going to select our first line that we want to duplicate, and you can see, double check to make sure your fills are empty, and then hold down the Alt button. Using the move tool, just like in every other program that we've used so far, we learned that holding Alt while using the move tool allows you to duplicate them. So we're going to duplicate 5 of each. I'm not going to make you watch that part, so please feel free to do that on your own. Okay, here we have all of our lines duplicated in patterns. So it's important to mention that I don't have like this line over here and this line over here and this line over here, and they're all sloppy and all over the place. When I put them together, I'm going to Command Z that. When I put them together, I made it so that they are with their similar lines. And the reason for that is I'm trying to create something called rhythm. Rhythm is just like the chorus of a song. It's like where the beat goes up and down, okay? So, and it's repeated. That's how it's like a chorus of the song. So we want to hit these beats, and we have that in every one. My wavy line has kind of a beat going. The next step is to create variation though, because right now these were pretty boring and I want to make them more interesting. So the way that we're going to create variation is we're going to choose one of them. So I'm going to select the one line that I want to work with at a time and go over to what's called our options area. This is our tool area and this is our options area. So I'm going to go over to my options, and the first thing I could change is the fill. But I told you these are lines. None of them should have a fill, so you should never change that unless it's not red, in which a red slash, in which case you should make it be a red slash. This is our stroke, which will allow us to change the color of our stroke. So I can make it red or blue. I could go over here and I could change the thickness of the line to whatever part I want. Let's go to like the 10. That's going to be pretty big. All right, then we could go to the uniform of the line and change it so that it has something else interesting to it. And by the way, there's more of these things if I scroll down, so I could try out all those. I could also go into here and change the textures. This is my favorite area to play around in. It has some really cool stuff, especially after you go through some of these. You can also go into these folders and check these out. My favorite is artistic. You could do things like splatter paint and stuff like that, which will actually stop it from being a line. But it's cool if you do that to one or two of your lines, just not all of them, because we still want to be able to read this as being linear. So now I'm going to go down to my next one, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go with the school color theme. You could go whatever color theme you want, or you could just mix all colors. Maybe your color theme is rainbow. I'm going to make this a thickness of 3, and I'm going to go back to this because I really liked that. All right, so I'm not going to show you how to do this. When you come back, all of them will be done. I chose a color, what's called a color theme, and I basically took school colors, which happen to be opposite colors. So you don't have to pick a color theme. I brought this color wheel in to show you probably a review of what you've learned in Miss Malloy's class, is that opposite colors on opposite sides of the wheel, like if I were to take this area of colors and say this area of colors, those opposing forces will make a really nice color theme, and so will the opposing forces here, and so will the opposing forces here, but that's a little Christmassy for us. So just so you know, another way to go is to choose a theme that's all cool colors. So you'd stay in this area of the wheel, or sorry, including green, or warm colors, which are in this area of the wheel. So if you want to pick a color theme, that's an awesome thing to do, and it'll make something that otherwise would look pretty messy, which could be a good thing too, neaten up a little bit. So again, you don't have to choose one, but you could. You could make a color theme for each one if you want to, or you could choose rainbow as your color theme, or you could do it all in different blues that are available within here. Remember, by the way, these little folders mean that there's plenty more to check out, so you might want to check out some of the regular colors in here, but this really has all you need for something as simple as coloring the line. And that's how you create your 30 lines of different variations. Thanks for watching.